Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Medals Monday. This time we're going to be looking at identifying the age of a United States military medal. There are several ways of doing this and I'm going to focus on two of them. They're the main ones that I use. So without any further delay, let's crack on. So the first thing that we're going to look at are the boxes that the medals come in. So here are a selection of World War II and post-war issued medal boxes from several manufacturers. Most of these boxes show the stock number and manufacturer's details plus a description of the medal enclosed. Note though that not all the boxes are the same with the information that they have, but they do have one similar detail, and that is the gummed label, the stuck-on label, either on the edge or the side of the box. Now, this particular way of applying the information to the box started around World War II and finished in the mid-1960s. So we can date these boxes between the Second World War and the 1960s. After the 1960s, it progressed to a different style where the information was applied directly to the edge of the box. So you can see here on this Vietnam or this National Defence Service medal, the information has just literally been applied direct to the box. Now this particular process occurred from the 1960s to the 1980s, so we have a time frame for these boxes too. Now after the 1980s they went to a barcode system. Now that barcode system looks like this, various different boxes but all with the same characteristic of a barcode system. So this barcode system like I say, was introduced in the 1980s and is still in use today. So we can date these boxes between 1980 and present day. But we can, utilising the labels themselves, we can find out more information. So if we go back to the very early boxes, these first type of box, you can see there's quite a bit of information on there. Some of it's really helpful, others less so. So for example, these Victory World War II medals, they're great boxes because they tell us everything that we need to know about what's in the box. So medal, campaign and service, Victory World War II, the stock number, the specification, the company that made it, and more importantly when they made it. So we know that this box at the very least was manufactured on the June the 21st 1946, and it's the same with this one here, June 21st 1946. We have a very similar occurrence with this box. So you can see here 29th of January 1945. It tells us everything we need to know, so we've got a very accurate date here. However, not all labels are the same. So these two in particular, there's no date on it. There's a stock number or an order number and it tells you the basic information, but apart from that it doesn't tell you anything else. So how do you date these boxes? Well, there's another thing that you can do, and that thing that you can do is look for the FSN number, so the federal stock number. Now this number here at the top left, that is a federal stock number. Now these numbers first appeared around the mid-50s until they were phased out in 1974 by 13-digit numbers. So if you see an 11-digit FSN number, then you know that it's between mid-50s and 1974. So by the process of elimination, if there is no FSN number on these labelled boxes, then we know that these boxes predate the FSN numbering system. So they are no older or earlier than World War II, but no later than the mid-1950s. So this Asiatic Pacific Theatre campaign medal, we're confident, was produced between the Second World War and the mid-1950s. Now, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, that the Asiatic Pacific campaign medal was produced and distributed around 1948 to 1950. So that just confirms it even more. So that's a great way of identifying on these early boxes the time frame in which these medals were produced. However, note these two boxes. These are exactly the same style box, but there's absolutely no information apart from the medal detail. Once again, because there's no FSN number that was introduced in the mid-1950s, we can deduce that this is a pre-1950s box. The way that the label's applied tells us that this process occurred between the Second World War up to the 1960s. So once again, these boxes are between the Second World War and the mid-1950s. Moving on to the second type of box. So this box, if you remember, runs from the mid-1960s to the 1980s. In here, there's some information that can help us identify the age of the box. Now, if you look closely, not only does it give you all of the information, not only does it have the FSN number, and look again here, they're all 11-digit numbers because they're pre-1970s. How do I know they're pre-1970s? Well, they've conveniently, on the top box here, placed a date. So December 1966. Here, these two, they don't provide a date. However, we can look at a DSA code. Now, the DSA code stands for the Defence Supply Agency code. And these little numbers here next to the DSA code tell us quite a bit of information. So on these particular medals, after DSA you have 100. That stands for the code for the Defence Personnel Support Centre. The two digits afterwards, the 69, stands for the fiscal year of contract, 1969. C stands for contract, and the 1490 stands for the contract number. So we can deduce from that that these boxes are 1969 issued campaign medals. However, the DSA numbering system did evolve throughout the period. So the DSA numbers are not always going to look the same. So you have in front of you 4 of these boxes with a DSA number. You can see one of them's a gummed label, so we know that this is World War II to no later than the mid-60s. And you can see here the DSA number are the same format for these 3 medals, but this one here is different. So we can date medals even more through this DSA number. So from 1964-1965, the DSA code was followed by the number 1. From 1966, the DSA code had 100 straight after it. From 1967 to 1977, the DSA followed by 100 had the last 2 digits of the year after it. So DSA 169. From 1977, the DSA code changed from DSA to DLA, Defence Logistics Agency. And then from 1994, it changed from DLA to SPO, System Programme Office. So those codes can really help us identify the age of the medals. You can see on this bottom one here, the DSA-1 So we know that that's going to be 1964, 1965, no later. That's supported by this number in the bottom right hand corner, which is the last 2 digits of the year, 1964. Here is an ink stamp of the month in which it was produced. So number 8. So we know this medal, the National Defence Service Medal, was produced August 1964. If we put these to one side and focus on the barcode sets, you can see the DLA numbers on these and the SPO numbers. So if we just take 2 of these, here's a DLA number, 189, so we know it was manufactured 1989, but it gives us a package date of March 1990. The same here, SPO 10003, so contract was 2003, package date February 2004. You'll also note on here the FSN number, the federal stock number. Now remember what I said about it being 11 digits long until it changed to 13 digits in 1974. Here along the top, just below the barcode, is the FSN number, and you can see it's 13 digits long. The additional 2 digits after 1974 were the 5th and 6th digit, and you can see here that's 00, but you can see on this one here it's 01. They both mean the same thing. Now it's NATO coding, and 00 and 01 mean the United States of America. If Britain, United Kingdom, were to have a medal code, it would be 99, because that's the code for the United Kingdom. So depending on which country, depends on what the code is. But 00 on the 5th and 6th digit is America, and the same as 01. And that's it. So from this part 1 section of looking at boxes, we can now comfortably establish that this is the first type, so World War II to 1960s. This is the second type of box, 1960s to 1980s. This is the third type of box, so 1980s to present day, and the slight variations from DLA numbers to SPO numbers from that time. So that's one way of dating the medals. Join me in part 2 in a second, where we start talking about the medals themselves. Right, so welcome to part 2. In this part, we're going to be looking at the medals themselves to try and understand the age of them. Now, US military medals aren't difficult to age, but they're not exactly simple. And what I mean by that is that there's nothing physically on the medal itself, not a hallmark on the medal, or indeed an individual's name in most cases, or any identifier that can help us understand the age of the medal. So we have to look elsewhere. Now, what I'm not saying is there isn't US military medals out there that don't have individuals' names or serial numbers on the edge of the medal. That was done in some cases, but a majority of the campaign medals, or the military medals that you're going to come across, are going to be blank medals. There's not going to be a name on it. There's not going to be a serial number on it. When I say names, if we turn this medal over, this is a good conduct medal, and you can see there is a space right there to inscribe the individual's name. It's the same with this prisoner of war medal. There is a space just here to inscribe the individual's name. That was done on occasion, but not not by the majority of those that served. It's the same with the Purple Heart here. There is a space at the bottom where the individual's name can be engraved. Now, these medals come issued unnamed. You can ask the US government, if you're a serving soldier, to engrave the medal, or you can do it locally yourself. You'll have to speak to your unit commanders regarding that if you're a serving soldier. More often than not, though, they were named by the individual, especially during the early periods of around World War II, Korea, etc. So, if we've got nothing on the medal itself that can help us identify it, the only other way is the brooch that holds the medal and the ribbon together. So if I turn these medals round, you can see that there is a difference in brooch style. So this difference can help us date the medal. Now, this brooch style here, this is known as a loop brooch. And the reason why it's known as a loop brooch is because the ribbon loops round it. You can also see how the ribbon is stitched through holes within the brooch to keep it all in place. Now, depending on the actual ribbon of the medal, depends on what this colour is. Now, this thread can be either silk or cotton, also depending on the age. So some medal ribbons are silk and some medal ribbons are cotton or a man-made material. It's the same with this medal here. Now, this is an American Defence Medal, and you can see it is a loop bar brooch, with yellow cotton or silk thread holding it all in, just to keep that continuity of the colours so nothing stands out that doesn't look right. Now, this style of brooch here that you see before you, the loop style, came in around 1939 and stopped being used in medals by 1963. So we can date these medals between 1939 and 1963. If you've got the box that they came in, which I have, so you've got the American Defence Medal here, and I also have the Good Conduct Medal here. As we established in the first part of this, because it lacks an FSN number, but both of these are stuck on labels, it dates them between the Second World War and the mid-1950s. So everything about these tally up to give me a comfortable opinion that these are genuine period medals of the time. If we move those to one side, we can now focus on these two types of medal brooch. Now, these two types of medal brooch, as you can see, are not sewn in. They are crimped in place. So you have the main brooch section, and then it is folded over, crimping the pin set and the ribbon in place. Now, depending on the width of these, depends on the years of manufacture. This one here, along with this Vietnam War medal, are 12 millimeters. So they're 12 millimeters from that point there to this point here on both of them. So that tells me that these are 12mm crimp brooches. Now, a 12mm crimp brooch was introduced post World War II and went all the way through to the 1980s. So we can date these post Second World War, obviously, because it's Korea and Vietnam, but no later than the 1980s. So if we get the medal boxes that these came in, This is the Korean War Service box, 12mm brooch, 1955. So after the Second World War, but before the 1980s. So this and this tally up. It's the same with this. The box here, 1969. So it tallies. So there's no alarm bells ringing out that these are not legitimate medals of the period. If we put those to one side and focus on these two, I chose these two for a reason. One, because this is a Armed Forces Expeditionary Service medal that has had a large amount of service, or there's been a large amount of time where this could have been issued to soldiers. And this one here, the Vietnam Service medal, this would have been issued originally around the time of the Vietnam War. But if we look at the brooches on this, we can see when we compare it to the 12mm one that it's considerably narrower. These are called the 9mm crimp brooches. And when I use the word mil, I mean millimetre. So these 9mm crimp brooches were introduced from 1991 onwards. So we know that these medals here, even though they could have been awarded it over many decades, or in this particular case around the period of the Vietnam War, 60s and 70s, these were later produced medals from 1991 onwards. So that's how, utilising medal ribbons, we can date medals a little bit more accurately in regards to their age. Now, some people might be thinking about hallmarks. Every video I shoot, I point out a hallmark on the medals that I'm reviewing and give you the information. You'll notice that there aren't hallmarks on every medal ribbon brooch. There's nothing to worry about that. That's perfectly normal. You can see here that you have the medal ribbon, if I just focus in there, that looks like HLP G1. So we know that if we look at our database of manufacturers, that's E&H Simon Incorporated, based in New York. If we move the pin on this one, you'll see a different code, which is a faint stamping of GR, CO and G1. On this one here, if we remove the pin, we have the code G27. Now G27 stands for the Grayco Awards Incorporated in Texas. So we know that where there's a hallmark, that tells us, and we can reference that hallmark, we know that that's a legitimate medal. But like I say, we don't always know, because there isn't always a hallmark. One small thing that I'd also like to talk about, which may help you, like a subsection to part 2, is although I say there's nothing on the medal itself that can help us identify the age of the medal, one thing that I would say is the following. So if we look at these two medals here, these are Asiatic Pacific Campaign medals, and you can see they are for the same conflict or theatre of operations, but the ribbons, brooches, are different. You have a very early one here, and then you have the later 12mm crimp here. When you look at the medals themselves, you notice that this earlier brooch style, the detail on the metal is a little bit crisper. So there's a greater level of intricacy, both in the detail on the ships or the firearms or the features of the soldiers on the front. This one on the left is a 12mm crimp. So we know that this is post-World War II. When you look at this one, this has got a much softer amount of detail. So what this could mean is that this is an early striking, where the machines that strike the medals and the design on the front and back were brand new with very crisp detail. But after striking hundreds and thousands of these medals, the detail fades away on the striking surfaces, which creates a softer appearance on the striking. So you could suggest that this is a later striking. Now that's supported by the brooch styles. Is this a modern copy like 1990s, 2000s? No, it's not, because we know by the brooch being 12mm. The box that it came in also helps us understand the medal as well. So the boxes that they came in were these boxes here. So we know that this one here has got nothing on it with the exception of the order details. So that's pre-1955, and it's the same with this. So these are both pre-1955 medals, but this one is a little bit older than this one due to the quality of the striking. So they're both period correct, and I'd happy to have them both in my collection, but there's a slight different age to them. And that's it. I hope you found this video of interest, especially when you go out now and start looking at medals to purchase and making sure that they're period to the conflict that you're collecting. If you have enjoyed the video, please make sure that you like, share, subscribe and comment, and I'll see you later.